The warning lights on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride flashed red. Commander Thelva stood from his seat, his four eyes narrowing as he watched the main display. Something was out there in the darkness of space, drifting at the edge of their territory. "Report," he ordered, his voice sharp and clear. "Unknown vessel detected, Commander," the sensor officer replied. Her scales shifted from blue to worried purple. "It's moving very slowly, almost no power signature. The ship appears to be damaged or abandoned." Thelvas walked closer to the screen. In his 40 years of service to the Zephyrin Empire, he had seen many derelict ships. Pirates often left their victims floating in space. Sometimes old colony ships failed and drifted forever between the stars. This was probably nothing special. "Distance?" he asked. 12,000 kilometers and closing, Commander. "It's not moving. Toward us. We're catching up to it on our patrol route." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The Dominion's Pride was a powerful warship, the flagship of the 7th Border Fleet. They protected this region of space from smugglers, rebels, and anything else that threatened the Empire. An old wreck was not a threat. Still, regulations required them to investigate. "Prepare a boarding team," Thelva said. "We'll search the vessel for survivors and salvage. It might be worth something." "Yes, Commander." The great ship changed course slightly, moving toward the unknown vessel. As they got closer, the sensors gathered more information. The computer analyzed the data and displayed it on the screens around the bridge. "Commander, this is strange," the sensor officer said. "The hull composition is very primitive. The ship is made of metal alloys, actual steel and titanium, not biosynthetic materials." Thelvas felt his first hint of curiosity. Every spacefaring species in the known galaxy used biosynthetic materials for their ships. They were stronger, lighter, and easier to repair. Only very ancient vessels or very backward cultures still used basic metals. "How old is it?" he asked. "Difficult to say, Commander. The radiation scoring on the hull suggests it's been in space for a very long time. Centuries, perhaps. But the design doesn't match any known ancient civilization in our databases." The ship grew larger on the main screen. It was ugly by Imperial standards. The design was blocky and crude, with sharp angles instead of the smooth curves that proper engineering required. The hull was scarred and pitted from micrometeorite impacts. Parts of it looked burned, as if the ship had been in battle long ago. "Any weapons?" Thelvas asked. "No active weapons detected, Commander, no shields either. The ship is completely defenseless. If anyone is alive in there, they're helpless." "Life signs?" "No, Commander, but the hull is thick. It might be blocking our scans." Thelvas nodded. "Continue approach. Have the boarding team ready in 10 minutes." The bridge crew worked efficiently. Marines gathered in the docking bay, checking their weapons and suits. A small shuttle launched from the Dominion's Pride, carrying equipment to cut through the derelict's hull if necessary. As the shuttle moved closer, better scans became possible. The computer processed the new data, analyzing every detail of the strange ship. Then suddenly an alert sounded. "Commander," the sensor officer said, her voice higher than before. "We're detecting markings on the hull. Very faded but visible. The computer is trying to translate them." On the main screen, an image appeared. It showed a section of the derelict's hull. There, barely visible under centuries of space damage, was a symbol. A circle, colored in shades of blue and green. Around it were strange, angular letters, unlike any writing system Thelvas had seen before. "Translation in progress," the computer announced in its calm voice. Thelvas stared at the symbol. Something about it bothered him. The blue and green circle looked like a planet, a world covered in water and life. But which planet? Where did this ship come from? "Translation complete," the computer said. "Hull markings indicate point of origin, Earth. System designation, Sol. Ship classification, Terran Confederation Space Service. Vessel name, TCSS Indomitable." The bridge became absolutely silent. Thelvas felt his blood turn cold. His primary heart skipped a beat, then his secondary heart stopped completely for a moment. He gripped the edge of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. "Confirm that translation," he said quietly. Confirmed, Commander. The ship is from Earth, Sol System, Terran origin. By the void, someone whispered. Thelva spun toward the communication station. Recall the boarding team immediately. Pull. Them back now, Commander. The communications officer looked confused. Do it, Thelva shouted. Get them away from that ship, maximum distance, and plot a jump to hyperspace, fastest possible course away from here. The bridge erupted into sudden activity. Officers who had been calm moments before now moved with panic. The shuttle pilot received the emergency recall and fired his engines, rushing back toward the safety of the Dominion's Pride. Commander, I don't understand, the sensor officer said. It's just a derelict. There's no danger. You don't know what you're talking about, Thelva said. His voice shook slightly. How long have you been in service? 5 years? 10? 8 years, Commander. Then you weren't alive during the first contact. You didn't learn the lessons. We learned. He turned to face her. That ship is from Earth. Do you understand what that means? The younger officer shook her head. Thelva's pointed at the image on the screen. 300 years ago, the Empire made the worst mistake in its history. We found Earth. We contacted the humans. And we tried to conquer them. He walked back to his command chair but didn't sit. His legs felt weak, but he couldn't show that weakness to his crew. He had to stay in control. Open a priority channel to Imperial Command, he ordered. Maximum encryption. Alpha level emergency. Channel open, Commander. Thelvas took a deep breath. What he was about to report would cause chaos across the Empire. The High Council would panic. The Empress herself would have to be informed. But there was no choice. The rules were clear. If anyone ever encountered anything from Earth again, everyone had to know immediately. This is Commander Thelvas of the Dominion's Pride 7th Border Fleet, he said into the recorder. I am transmitting a priority Alpha emergency report. We have discovered a vessel of Terran origin at coordinates attached to this message. The ship appears to be a derelict abandoned centuries ago. I am classifying this as a Red 9 hazard event. The quarantine of Sol System may have been breached. I repeat, we have found an Earth ship outside the quarantine zone. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I am withdrawing all Imperial forces from this sector immediately. I recommend full fleet mobilization and emergency protocols. Sol's children have left their cage. They've returned to the galaxy. He ended the transmission and looked at his crew. Most of them still seemed confused. They were too young. They had grown up in an empire that was strong and confident. They had never lost a battle. They didn't understand fear. But Thelvas was old enough. He had been a young officer during the war. He hadn't fought in it himself, but he had seen the ships return. He had watched the survivors, had seen the fear in their eyes. He had read the classified reports that the Empire tried to keep secret. Navigation, jump us out of here now, he said. Commander, shouldn't we investigate further? Take more scans? This is an important archaeological find. Archaeology? Thelvas laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You think that ship is archaeology? You think humans are just another dead civilization? He pulled up a file on his personal terminal. It was old, marked with the highest security classifications. He entered his command codes and overrode the restrictions. The file opened. Computer, display the following on main screen. Historical file 773, First Contact War, Final Casualty Report. The image on the screen changed. Numbers appeared. Long lists of numbers. Ships destroyed. Marines killed. Planets damaged. The final tally of the war against Earth. The bridge crew stared in silence. 12,000 ships, Thelvas said quietly. The Empire sent 12,000 warships to conquer one small planet, a primitive world that had barely reached its own moon. We outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. Our technology was centuries ahead of theirs. It should have been easy. He pointed at the numbers on the screen. We lost 4,800 ships, nearly half our fleet, 40,000 Marines dead, 3 dreadnoughts destroyed by humans using nothing but asteroids and nuclear weapons. Primitive weapons, crude weapons, but effective. The sensor officer's scales had turned pale white. That's Impossible, Commander. That's what everyone thought. That's what the admirals thought. But humans don't fight like we do. They don't follow the rules of civilized warfare. When we destroyed their ships, their pilots rammed the wreckage into our vessels. When we landed, on their colonies, their civilians fought us with knives and explosives. They turned their own cities into traps. They weaponized everything. Thelvis pulled up another file, a video recording from the war. It showed a human soldier, injured and surrounded by Imperial Marines. The human was clearly dying. Instead of surrendering, the soldier detonated an explosive vest, killing himself and taking a dozen Imperial troops with him. They have no fear of death, Thelvis said. Every single one of them will fight until they cannot fight anymore. And when they cannot fight, they make their deaths count for something. The Empire won that war, but barely. And we decided never to fight them again. So we quarantined them, the communications officer said. Yes. We built a blockade around their entire star system. Automated weapons platforms, hunter-killer drones, everything. We told the humans that if they tried to leave, we would destroy them. We sealed Earth away and tried to forget about them. The hyperspace engines powered up, creating a low humming sound throughout the ship. They would jump soon, leaving this cursed place behind. But if that ship is out here, Thelvis continued, then the quarantine failed. Somehow humans escaped. And if one ship escaped 300 years ago, there could be others. There could be human colonies out there. There could be entire fleets. He looked at the image of the derelict one last time before they jumped away. The Empire thought we caged the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We thought we were safe. We were wrong. And now, 300 years later, we have to face the consequences. The hyperspace jump activated. The stars stretched and blurred as the Dominion's pride fled into the depths of space. Behind them, the ancient Earth ship drifted in the darkness, silent and still. Inside that ship, deep in its cold metal corridors, something changed. A single light flickered on. Then another. Deep in the ship's core, systems that had slept for centuries began to wake up. Computer systems activated, running through their startup sequences. In a sealed chamber near the center of the vessel, frost began to melt from the surface of dozens of cryogenic pods. The humans were waking up. And across the galaxy, in the throne room of the Empress herself, alarms began to sound. The priority, Alpha transmission from Commander Thelvis had arrived. Within hours, every ship in the Imperial fleet would receive the same message. The nightmare had returned. Earth had come back. And this time, no one knew if the Empire could survive. The Imperial throne room was a magnificent place. Its walls stretched up hundreds of meters, carved from a single piece of crystal that had formed at the heart of a dying star. Light moved through the crystal in patterns that changed with the time of day, painting rainbows across the assembled nobles and officials. At the far end of the vast hall, sitting on a throne made from the bones of extinct creatures, Empress Shirakel received the news that would change everything. She was reading through routine reports when her personal aide approached. The aide, an old counselor named Vreth, moved quickly despite his age. His face showed worry, and that alone made the Empress pay attention. Vreth had served her grandmother. Very few things could still frighten him. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low. "A priority Alpha transmission has arrived from the 7th Border Fleet. Commander Thelvis reports a Red 9 hazard event." The Empress felt her breath catch. Red 9 hazard was the highest danger classification in the Imperial codes. It meant a threat to the Empire itself, not just to a single ship or planet. In her 20 years of rule, she had never received a Red 9 alert. "Show me," she commanded. Vreth activated a holographic projector. Commander Thelvis's message played in the air before her. When it finished, the throne room was completely silent. Every noble, every official, every guard had heard the word that they had hoped never to hear again. "Earth, convene the War Council immediately," the Empress said. Her voice remained steady, though her hearts beat faster. "I want every admiral, every general, every senior intelligence officer in this room within the hour. And bring me the historical records. Everything we have about the First Contact War." The throne room emptied quickly as officials rushed to obey. Soon only the Empress and Vreth remained. Do you remember it? She asked him quietly. The war? I was young, Your Majesty, Vreth said. But yes, I remember. I was serving as a junior analyst in the Imperial Fleet Intelligence Division. I processed casualty reports. He paused. So many casualty reports. Tell me the truth, old friend. How bad was it really? The official histories say we won a glorious victory. Vreth's expression darkened. The official histories lie, Your Majesty. We won, yes, but it was the costliest victory in Imperial history. If the humans had been any stronger, if they'd had a few more ships, a few more years to prepare, he trailed off. We would have lost, the Empress finished. Yes, Your Majesty. Within the hour, the War Council assembled. Admirals in their decorated uniforms stood beside generals in battle armor. Intelligence officers carried data pads filled with secret information. They all looked worried. Admiral Corvin, the oldest and highest-ranking military officer in the Empire, spoke first. He was nearly 80 years old and had been a captain during the Earth War. Your Majesty, if the report is accurate, we face an unprecedented crisis. The Sol quarantine has held for 300 years. If it's been breached, we must know how and when. Agreed, said General Thross. We need to send a full battle fleet to investigate. Capture that Earthship, study it, learn what we're dealing with. No, Admiral Corvin said sharply. We should destroy it. Destroy it from maximum range with everything we have. Then we strengthen the Sol quarantine and pray no other human ships escaped. The Empress raised her hand, silencing the debate. Before we make any decisions, I need to understand what we're facing. Admiral Corvin, you were there. Tell us about Earth. Tell us about the humans. The old admiral walked to the center of the room. With a gesture, he activated the holographic systems. Images appeared in the air. A small yellow star, a blue and green planet, the third from the sun. 300 years ago, he began, the Empire was at the height of its power. We controlled 1,000 systems. Our fleets were unstoppable. We explored new regions of space, bringing order and civilization to primitive worlds. The hologram changed, showing star charts with imperial borders expanding outward. Our scouts discovered the Sol system during a routine exploration mission. It was unremarkable in most ways. One habitable planet, recently colonized inner worlds, a species that had just developed primitive fusion drives. They called themselves humans. The hologram showed images of Earth, cities, oceans, forests. Then it showed humans themselves. They looked strange compared to most galactic species. Only 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry, soft skin, no natural armor or weapons. They looked weak, Admiral Corvin continued. Small, fragile. Our xenobiologists studied them from orbit and reported that humans came from a death world, high gravity, dangerous predators, violent weather, but we had conquered death world species before. We thought humans would be no different. The images changed to show the Imperial fleet arriving at Earth. Massive warships, sleek and powerful. We sent our standard diplomatic mission. We offered Earth a place in the Empire. They would become a subject world, paying tribute and following our laws. In return, we would give them technology, protect them, guide them. It was the same offer we had made to 100 other species, and they refused. The Empress said, More than refused, Your Majesty. They told us to leave their system and never return. They said Earth bowed to no one. They said they would rather die free than live as subjects. Admiral Corvin's expression grew dark as he remembered. The High Council at that time thought the humans were foolish. How could one primitive planet stand against the Empire? They sent a subjugation fleet, 12,000 ships, troop carriers with 100,000 Marines, dreadnoughts capable of bombarding entire continents. It should have been simple. The hologram showed the Imperial fleet surrounding Earth. Then it showed what happened next. Battles erupted in space around Earth. Human ships, small and crude compared to Imperial vessels, attacked with desperate fury. They used nuclear missiles, kinetic weapons, and tactics that shocked the Imperial commanders. They didn't fight like any species we had encountered. Admiral Corvin said. When their ships were damaged, they didn't retreat. They rammed us. Pilots aimed their burning vessels at our dreadnoughts and detonated their reactors. Every single time, no surrender, no mercy, not for themselves, not for us. The hologram showed a battle around Earth's moon. A small human frigate, its hull torn open and burning, crashed into an Imperial cruiser. The explosion destroyed both ships. They weaponized everything, the Admiral continued. Asteroids became kinetic bombardment weapons. Their own space stations became bombs. They even attached rockets to chunks of ice and fired them at our formations. It was crude, inefficient, wasteful, but it worked. A new image appeared. Imperial Marines landing on a human colony on Mars. When we sent ground troops, things got worse. Human civilians fought us with improvised weapons. Children threw explosives. Elderly people became suicide bombers. Every building was a trap. Every street was a kill zone. They turned their own cities into war zones and fought us for every meter. The hologram showed the aftermath of a battle. Destroyed buildings. Thousands of dead on both sides. They didn't value individual survival, Admiral Corvin said. That's what made them so dangerous. Every other species fights to live. Humans fight to win. If winning requires their death, they die willingly, and they make their deaths count. He showed another image. A human soldier, captured by Imperial Marines. The human was injured, disarmed, surrounded. By all military protocols, the battle was over. This soldier was one of thousands we captured, Admiral Corvin said. We thought we could interrogate them, learn about human defenses, but every single captive did the same thing. The hologram played forward. The human soldier activated a concealed device. An explosion followed. The soldier died, along with the Marines guarding him. They had implanted explosives in their own bodies, the Admiral said quietly. Every soldier, every civilian fighter, all of them, they chose to die rather than give us information. The Empress felt cold despite the warmth of the throne room. How long did the war last? 2 years, Your Majesty. 2 years of constant battle. We destroyed their fleet. We bombed their cities. We killed millions of them. But they never surrendered. They kept fighting with whatever they had left. How did it end? Admiral Corvin closed his eyes, remembering. We won a military victory. We shattered their last defenses and surrounded Earth itself. But we had lost so much. Nearly half our fleet was destroyed. Thousands of our best soldiers were dead. And the humans, even in defeat, promised they would never stop fighting. They would resist forever, killing as many of us as they could. The hologram changed to show the final decision. The Empire's admirals, standing around a war table, made their choice. The High Council realized we couldn't occupy Earth, Admiral Corvin said. Every day would bring more attacks, more deaths, more losses. The cost was too high, so we made a different choice. The hologram showed the construction of the quarantine. Massive weapons platforms being built in orbit, automated, defense systems, hunter-killer drones, a wall of death surrounding the entire Sol system. We sealed them in, the Admiral said. We told the humans that if they tried to leave, we would destroy any ship that crossed the boundary. We would bombard Earth from orbit until nothing lived. It was the only way to contain them. And they accepted this? The Empress asked. They had no choice. Their fleet was destroyed. Their colonies were in ruins. But even then, as we left, they sent us a final message. He pulled up an old recording. A human appeared in the hologram, a woman, wearing the uniform of Earth's military. Her face was hard, her eyes filled with cold anger. This is Commander Chen of the Terran Confederation Defense Force, the recording said. You think you've won. You think you've caged us. You're wrong. Humans don't forget. Humans don't forgive. You've made an enemy that will never stop hating you, and one day somehow we will be free. When that day comes, you will regret what you've done here. The recording ended. The throne room was silent. For 300 years, Admiral Corvin said, The quarantine is held. We thought they would eventually die out. Their civilization would collapse without access to the galaxy. Or they would adapt, accept their prison, forget about revenge. But now a ship has been found, the Empress said, outside the quarantine. Yes, Your Majesty, which means humans escaped. And if they escaped 300 years ago, just after the war, they've had 3 centuries to prepare, 3 centuries to build, 3 centuries to plan their revenge. General Thross stepped forward. Your Majesty, we must act decisively. Send the fleet to capture that ship. Study it. Learn what humans have become. Then we find any human colonies and eliminate them before they become a threat. And if there are too many to eliminate? Asked Intelligence Director Sharn. If they've spread across multiple systems? If they've built a fleet? Then we face another war, Thross said. But this time we'll be ready. We know their tactics, we know how they fight, we won't underestimate them again. The Empress stood from her throne. She walked to the hologram, studying the image of Earth. That small blue and green planet that had cost her empire so much. Send orders to the nearest battle fleet, she commanded. I want that Earth ship captured intact. We need to know what we're dealing with. But proceed with extreme caution. If there's any sign of danger, any indication that this is a trap, the fleet should withdraw and report immediately. Yes, Your Majesty. And reinforce the Sol quarantine. Double the defenses. Triple them. I want to know if anything tries to enter or leave that system. The admirals and generals bowed and left to carry out their orders. Soon only the Empress and old Vreth remained again. Do you think we can win if war comes again? She asked. Vreth thought carefully before answering. 300 years ago, Your Majesty. We barely defeated humans who had just reached their moon. Now they've had 3 centuries behind that quarantine. 3 centuries to improve their technology, to train their warriors, to plan. I don't know if we can win. I don't even know if we can survive. The Empress looked at the image of Earth one more time. Then she deactivated the hologram. Then pray to whatever gods still listen, she said, softly. Pray that the humans want peace, because if they want war, the Empire may not last to see its next century. Across the galaxy, Imperial ships began to move, fleets mobilized, soldiers prepared for battle. But none of them truly understood what was coming. None of them realized that the small derelict ship floating in space was not a coincidence. It was a message, and humanity was about to answer 300 years of imprisonment with a response the Empire would never forget. Inside the cold metal corridors of the TCSS Indomitable, lights flickered to life one by one. The ship's computer systems had been sleeping for 287 years, running on minimal power, waiting. Now ancient programming code executed its final commands. Power cells that had been carefully preserved through centuries activated. Heating systems warmed the frozen air. And in the cryo bay, 48 pods began their wake-up sequences. Captain Sarah Chen felt consciousness. Returned slowly. First came awareness of her body. Cold. So cold. Then pain as frozen muscles thawed. Her heart began beating faster, pumping warm blood through veins that had been still for nearly 3 centuries. She tried to open her eyes, but couldn't. Ice crystals had formed on her eyelashes. Captain Chen, a computer voice said, calm and emotionless. Welcome back. You have been in cryogenic suspension for 287 years, 4 months and 12 days. Initiating full revival sequence. Warm air blew across Chen's face. The ice melted. She opened her eyes and saw the frosted interior of her cryopod. Through the thick glass, she could see the cryo bay. Other pods were opening. Other crew members were waking up. Status report, Chen said. Her voice was rough, barely a whisper. All systems functional, the computer replied. Hull integrity at 92%. Power reserves at 40%. Life support fully operational. 47 crew members successfully revived. 1 cryopod failure during the journey. Navigator Rodriguez did not survive. Chen felt a stab of sadness but pushed it aside. Rodriguez had known the risks. They all had. When they left Earth nearly 300 years ago, they had known some. of them might not wake up. The pod door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Chen climbed out slowly, her legs shaking. She was wearing a simple gray suit, the standard clothing for cryo-sleep. Around her, the other crew members were emerging. From their pods, doctors, engineers, soldiers. All of them had volunteered for this mission. All of them had said goodbye to everyone they knew, understanding they would never see Earth again. "Captain," a voice called. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, her second in command, stumbled toward her. He looked as weak as she felt, but he was smiling. "We made it. We actually made it." "Not yet," Chen said. "Computer, display external sensor data. Where are we?" A holographic screen appeared in the air before them. Star charts, navigation data, and most importantly, a tactical display. Chen's smile faded as she studied the information. "We have company," she said. 8 Imperial ships surrounded the Indomitable at a safe distance. They were maintaining position, not attacking, not approaching, just watching. "They found us," Webb said. "They were supposed to find us," Chen replied. She moved to a computer terminal and began typing commands, her fingers remembering the passwords, despite 3 centuries of sleep. "Computer, status of the quantum transmitter. Quantum transmitter fully functional and charged. Ready to broadcast on your command. Don't activate it yet." Chen pulled up more data. "Show me the position of the Imperial ships. Weapon status, shield strength." The computer displayed detailed information about their watchers. Chen studied each ship carefully, noting their capabilities, their positioning, their readiness state. "They're scared," she said with satisfaction. "Look at the spacing. They're maintaining maximum distance while keeping us in sensor range. They're not sure what we are or what we can do." "They should be scared," Webb said. "After what we did to them during the war. After what our grandparents did to them," Chen corrected. "We weren't born yet. Hell, our parents weren't born yet, but the Empire doesn't forget. That's going to work in our favor." She activated the ship's communication systems. Old equipment deliberately outdated, designed to look like it came from the era of the First Contact War. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Confederation Space Service vessel Indomitable," she said clearly. "We are broadcasting to all Imperial ships in the area. We are not hostile. We request peaceful communication." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and had a strange accent, speaking standard galactic common. "This is Commander Thelvas of the Imperial flagship Dominion's Pride. You are in violation of the Sol quarantine. By Imperial law, any human vessel found outside the quarantine zone must be destroyed." "Is that so?" Chen replied. "Then why haven't you destroyed us, Commander?" Another pause. Thelvas was probably consulting with his superiors, Chen thought. Good. Let them worry. Let them wonder. "We have orders to give you an opportunity to surrender," Thelvas finally said. "Power down your engines. Prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be taken into custody and your ship will be seized for study." "I appreciate the offer, Commander, but I'm afraid we must decline." "You have no choice, human. You are surrounded. You have no weapons, no shields, no way to escape. If you do not surrender, we will open fire." Chen looked at Webb. Her second in command was grinning now. They had practiced this conversation 100 times before entering cryosleep. They knew exactly what to say, exactly how this would unfold. "Commander Thelvas," Chen said calmly, "I need to tell you something important. This ship, the Indomitable, left Earth 287 years ago. We launched just weeks after your empire sealed the quarantine around our system." "That's impossible," Thelvas said. "We would have detected any ship leaving Sol. Your blockade had just been completed. It had weak points. We found one. This ship and 11 others like it escaped before you could strengthen your defenses." There was a longer pause this time. Chen could imagine the panic on the Imperial bridge. 12 ships, 12 colony ships carrying humans out into the galaxy. "Where are the other ships?" Thelvas demanded. "Out there," Chen said, gesturing at the stars even though he couldn't see her. "Somewhere. We separated to increase our chances of survival. Each ship was given a different direction, different coordinates. The mission was simple: find habitable worlds, establish colonies, and make sure humanity survived outside the cage you built for us. You're lying. We would have found evidence of human colonies. Would you? The galaxy is a big place, Commander. How many systems has the Empire explored? How many worlds are out there that you've never visited? We had 287 years to hide, to grow, to prepare. Chen pulled up more data on her screen. The Indomitable had been in space a long time. Its sensors had been passive, listening, gathering information even during the long sleep. They had learned a lot about the current state of the Empire. But, you know what, Commander? Chen continued. We didn't just hide. We built. We advanced. While you thought you had us contained, we were working. We took those primitive ships you remember from the war and we improved them. We took our crude nuclear weapons and we made better ones. We had nearly 3 centuries to prepare for this day. This day? Thelvis asked. What are you talking about? The day we come back, Commander. The day humanity returns to the galaxy. You see, we didn't forget what you did. You attacked us. You killed millions of our people. You tried to conquer us, and when you couldn't, you locked us away like animals. We've been waiting, Commander. Waiting for the right moment. Chen nodded to Webb. He moved to another terminal and entered a series of commands. I'm going to tell your Empress something, Chen said. 300 years ago, she declared war on Earth. We accept that declaration, and we're ready to respond. You're insane, Thelvis said. You have one ship, one ancient defenseless ship. We have fleets. We have armies. You can't possibly win. Can't we? Chen smiled. Computer, activate the quantum transmitter. Maximum power. Broadcast code Foxtrot 77. Transmitter activated, the computer confirmed. Broadcasting. The quantum transmitter was a marvel of human engineering. It used principles of quantum entanglement to send messages faster than light itself. The signal couldn't be detected by normal sensors. It didn't travel through normal space, it simply existed everywhere at once, then collapsed into reality only where receivers were waiting. And across multiple star systems, hidden in asteroid belts and nebulae in orbit around distant planets, those receivers heard the signal. They activated their own systems. They began to move. On the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, warning alarms suddenly erupted. The sensor officer's voice rose in panic. Commander! I'm detecting hyperspace signatures, multiple contacts, dozens of them. Where? Thelvis demanded. Everywhere, sir. They're jumping in all around us. The space around the Indomitable began to shimmer and distort. One by one, massive ships emerged from hyperspace. They weren't primitive like the old derelict. They were sleek and deadly, their hulls painted in dark colors that made them hard to see against the black of space. Each one carried weapons that far exceeded anything from the First Contact War. Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. 20 ships appeared, then 50, then 100, all of them bearing the same symbol that marked the Indomitable, the blue and green Earth circled by stars. Commander Thelvis, she said, I'd like to introduce you to the Terran Confederation fleet. We've been waiting for you to find us. The Indomitable was bait, you see. We left it drifting in space, made it look old and helpless, knew you would investigate. And when you did, when you sent word back to your Empress that humans had escaped, we knew you would send more ships. We knew you would try to destroy us. More ships kept appearing. 200 now. 300. The Imperial vessels were completely surrounded. We spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment, Chen continued. While you thought we were trapped, we were exploring. We found worlds. We built colonies. We recruited allies from species you had oppressed. And we built a fleet that could stand against you. The Imperial ships were trying to retreat, but the human vessels moved to block their escape routes. Not attacking yet, just positioning themselves, waiting. So here's what's going to happen, Commander, Chen said. You're going to send a message to your Empress. You're going to tell her that the Terran Confederation is offering terms. We want the Sol quarantine removed. We want reparations for what you did to us. We want a formal treaty recognizing our sovereignty and the sovereignty of every species that chooses to stand with us against the Empire. And if we refuse? Thelvas asked. His voice was shaking now. Then we'll remind you why you were so scared of us in the first place, Chen said coldly. We've learned a lot in 300 years, Commander. We've learned patience, we've learned strategy. But we haven't forgotten how to fight. And if you force us to go to war again, this time we won't stop at defending ourselves. This time we'll come for you. A new ship appeared on the sensors. It was enormous, 5 times the size of any other vessel in the area. Its hull was covered in weapons emplacements and shield generators. This was the flagship of the Terran fleet, the TCS Defiance. This is Admiral James Patterson of the Terran Confederation Fleet, a new voice said. All Imperial vessels are ordered to power down your weapons. You will not be harmed if you comply. Resist and we will consider it an act of war. You have 30 seconds to decide. Chen watched the tactical display. The Imperial ships were scrambling, trying to determine what to do. Some were powering up weapons. Others were attempting to jump to hyperspace only to find their drives jammed by human technology. 20 seconds, Admiral Patterson said. One Imperial ship fired. Its energy beam lashed out at the nearest human vessel. The beam struck the ship's shields and dissipated harmlessly. The human ship didn't even return fire. You shouldn't have done that, Patterson said. The entire human fleet opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of weapons struck the Imperial ship at once. Its shields collapsed in seconds. The hull breached. The ship went dark, disabled but not destroyed. 15 seconds, Patterson continued as if nothing had happened. The rest of you, make better choices. One by one, the Imperial ships powered down their weapons. They had no choice. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely surrounded. Smart decision, Patterson said. You will remain here under guard while we continue negotiations with your Empress. Commander Thelvas, send your report. Tell her everything you've seen here, and tell her that this is just the beginning. We have fleets positioned at 12 strategic points across Imperial space. We're ready for anything. Chen leaned back in her chair, exhausted but triumphant. They had done it. The first phase of the plan was complete. The Empire knew that humanity was back, and they knew humanity was strong. Captain, Webb said quietly, do you think they'll accept our terms? Or will they fight? Chen thought about that. She remembered the history lessons, the stories of the First Contact War. She remembered what the Empire had done to Earth, the lives they had taken, the future they had tried to steal. I don't know, she admitted. The Empire is proud. They might choose war rather than admit they were wrong. But if they do, they'll learn the same lesson they learned 300 years ago. What lesson is that, Captain? Chen smiled grimly. That you never ever trap a human in a cage, because when we break free, we don't just escape. We burn the whole prison down and free everyone else inside it too. Outside the ship, the human fleet held position, weapons ready, waiting to see what the Empire would do next. The message had been sent. The pieces were in motion, and across the galaxy, humanity prepared to reclaim its place among the stars. The Imperial throne room had never been so crowded. Nobles who normally spent their time in luxury estates across the galaxy had rushed to the capital. Military commanders stood in full armor. Intelligence analysts carried data pads with constantly updating information. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. Everyone wanted to understand how the situation had gone so wrong so quickly. Empress Shirakel sat on her throne, listening to Admiral Corvin's latest report. The old admiral's voice was steady, but she could see the worry in his eyes. Your Majesty, we've confirmed the reports from Commander Thelvas. The human fleet consists of at least 300 warships, possibly more. They're using technology we've never seen before. Weapons that ignore shield harmonics, propulsion systems that are faster and more efficient than ours, and communications that we can't intercept or block. How is that possible? Demanded Duke Saros, one of the most powerful nobles in the Empire. 300 years ago, humans were primitives. They used crude fusion drives and chemical propellants. How did they advance so far? Because we gave them 300 years to do nothing but improve, said Intelligence Director Sharn. We locked them away thinking we had contained the threat. Instead, we gave them the perfect environment to advance. No distractions, no internal conflicts. Just one goal: escape and survive. The Empress stood and walked down from her throne. The assembled crowd parted to let her pass. She moved to a holographic display showing the current military situation. Red markers indicated Imperial ships. Blue markers showed known human fleet positions. There were far more blue markers than anyone wanted to see. "What are the humans demanding?" she asked. Admiral Corvin pulled up a recording. Captain Chen's face appeared in the hologram. The Empress studied the human woman carefully. Chen looked young, but her eyes were old. She had the look of someone who had seen war and understood its costs. "People of the Zephyrin Empire," Chen's recorded message began. 300 years ago, your leaders made a choice. They tried to conquer Earth. When they failed, they imprisoned us. They killed millions of our people and told us we could never leave our system. For 3 centuries, you thought you had solved the problem. You were wrong. The recording showed images of the Sol quarantine, the weapons platforms, the automated defense systems. Then it showed those same defenses being destroyed one by human ships. "We're breaking that quarantine now," Chen continued. "Not to seek revenge, though we would be justified in doing so. Not to conquer you, though we have the strength. We're breaking free because humanity deserves the same thing every species deserves: the right to exist, to explore, to live without chains." More images appeared. Human colonies on distant worlds, farms and cities, children playing, people living normal lives. "This is what you tried to prevent," Chen said. "This is what you feared. Humans living free among the stars. But we're not the monsters you imagined. We're just people trying to survive, trying to build a future for our children." The tone of the message changed. Chen's expression hardened. "However, we will not accept the status quo. We demand the following. First, immediate removal of all quarantine defenses around the Sol system. Second, formal recognition of the Terran Confederation as a sovereign power with all rights and protections under galactic law. Third, reparations for the damages inflicted during the First Contact War and the 3 centuries of imprisonment that followed." The nobles in the throne room began talking loudly, objecting to the demands. The Empress raised her hand for silence. "There's more," Admiral Corvin said. He continued playing the recording. "Finally," Chen said, "we demand that the Empire begin a process of reform. For too long you've ruled through fear and military might. You've conquered peaceful species and forced them into subjugation. That ends now. We're offering other species a choice. Stand with us for freedom or remain under Imperial control. We won't force anyone to join us, but we will defend those who choose freedom." The recording ended. The throne room erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted demands for war. Generals argued about strategy. Some voices called for negotiation, but they were drowned out by those demanding blood. "Silence!" the Empress commanded. Her voice carried through the hall, cutting through the noise. "All of you, be silent." The room became quiet. All eyes turned to her. "These demands are impossible," Duke Saros said. "If we accept them, we look weak. Every subject species will rebel, the Empire will collapse. If we don't accept them, we face war," replied Councillor Marith, one of the more moderate voices. "A war we might not win." "Of course we'll win," shouted General Thross. "We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. The humans have 300 ships. Even with advanced technology, they can't stand against the full might of the Empire." "Can't they?" Admiral Corvin asked quietly. 300 years ago, we had a 12-to-1 advantage and barely won. Now they have better technology, better training, and they've had 3 centuries to prepare for this exact situation." "You're a coward, Corvin," Thross said. "No, General. I'm a realist. I was there. I saw what humans can do. And that was when they were primitive." He pulled up tactical displays. "Look at these engagement reports. Every time our ships have encountered human vessels, we've lost. Not because our crews are incompetent, but because the humans are better, Faster, smarter, more ruthless. He showed a video from an Imperial ship's sensors. It showed a battle between an Imperial cruiser and a human frigate. The human ship was smaller, but it moved with incredible precision. It dodged Imperial fire while landing devastating hits on critical systems. Within minutes, the Imperial cruiser was disabled. And that's just one ship, Corvin said. They have hundreds. Then we send thousands, Thros insisted. And how many are you willing to lose, General? The Empress asked. How many ships? How many soldiers? How many worlds will burn while we fight a war we might not win? Thros started to answer but stopped. He had no good response. The Empress turned to Director Sharn. What about the other species? Chen said they were offering them a choice. Have any responded? Sharn looked uncomfortable. Yes, Your Majesty. We've detected uprisings on 17 subject worlds. The humans have been broadcasting their message on all frequencies. Species that have resented Imperial rule for generations are now openly rebelling. 17? The Empress felt her heart sink. So quickly. The humans planned this carefully, Your Majesty. They're not just offering freedom, they're offering protection, alliance, partnership. Every species that joins them gets access to human technology and military support. Sharn pulled up more data. The Kelran system declared independence 6 hours ago. The humans sent ships to defend them. When our fleet arrived to restore order, the human ships drove them back. Unacceptable, Duke Saros said. We can't let subject worlds simply leave whenever they want. Why not? Asked a new voice. Everyone turned. A young counselor named Vressa had spoken. She was relatively new to the court, representing one of the newer imperial territories. Your Grace, with respect, why can't we let them leave? She asked. If they want independence, if they're willing to fight for it, why should we force them to stay? Because that's not how empires work, Saros said. Maybe that's the problem, Vressa replied. Maybe the Empire's way doesn't work anymore. The Empress looked at the young counselor with interest. Explain. Your Majesty, the Empire was built on conquest, on forcing others to submit. But Chen is right about one thing. That creates resentment. Anger. It makes every subject species a potential enemy. We spend enormous resources maintaining control over worlds that hate us. What if we tried something different? Like what? Admiral Corvin asked. Like actually listening to the humans. They don't want to conquer us, they want freedom. What if we gave it to them? What if we offered them peace, truly equal partnership, and stopped trying to rule everything? That's naive, Thros said. Is it? Vressa asked. Or is it practical? We can fight the humans and probably lose. Even if we win, it will cost us everything. Ships, resources, loyalty from other species. Or we can negotiate. Find a middle path. Build something new. The Empress walked back to her throne. She sat down slowly, thinking about everything she had heard. The arguments for war, the arguments for peace. The future of the Empire, balanced on her decision. Director Sharn, she said, I want a secure communication channel opened with Captain Chen. Private, just her and me. Your Majesty, that's risky, Admiral Corvin said. The humans might what? Learn something about me? I need to speak with her. I need to understand what humanity really wants. Whether peace is truly possible. Sharn bowed. I'll arrange it immediately, Your Majesty. The court was dismissed. Hours later, alone in her private chambers, the Empress waited for the communication to connect. When Chen's face appeared on the screen, the two leaders studied each other carefully. Empress, Chen said, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I'm not sure I've agreed to anything yet, Captain, but I'm willing to listen. Tell me honestly, what does Earth really want? Chen took a breath before answering. What we've always wanted, Your Majesty. To live free, to explore, to build a future for our people without someone telling us we can't. We don't want to destroy the Empire. We don't want endless war. We just want what everyone wants: safety, freedom, and peace. And the rebellions you're encouraging? The species you're convincing to leave the Empire? We're not encouraging anything, Your Majesty. We're offering them a choice. The same choice we wanted 300 years ago. The choice you denied us. The Empress felt anger rise but pushed it down. My predecessors made that choice, not me. But you benefit from it, Chen said. Your empire was built on the suffering of others, on forcing species into submission. We're offering a different way. And if I refuse? If I choose war? Chen's expression didn't change. Then we'll fight, and we'll win. Not because we're better than you, but because we're fighting for something you're not. We're fighting for survival, for freedom. Your soldiers are fighting because they were ordered to. There's a difference, Your Majesty. It's the same difference that mattered 300 years ago. They sat in silence for a long moment. I need to think, the Empress said finally. I need to consult with my advisors. I'll send you my response within 3 days. Take the time you need, Chen said. But know this. Every day you delay, more species will join us. More of your empire will crumble. The old way is ending, Your Majesty. The only question is whether it ends in fire or in transformation. The communication ended. The Empress sat alone in her chambers for a long time, thinking about the impossible choice before her. Fight and probably lose everything, or change and possibly build something better. Outside her window, she could see the lights of the capital city. Billions of lives depending on her decision. The weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. In the end, she knew what she had to do. It wasn't what her ancestors would have done. It wasn't what the nobles wanted. But it was the only choice that made sense. She called for her advisors and began drafting a response that would change the galaxy forever. 3 days later, the galaxy watched as something unprecedented unfolded. Every major communication network, every news service, every public broadcast system across 1,000 worlds showed the same image. Empress Shirakel standing before the assembled imperial court, preparing to make an announcement that would reshape civilization. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the broadcast with her crew. Around her, dozens of crew members had gathered, all of them tense, waiting to hear if their gamble had paid off or if they were about to go to war. Do you think she'll accept? Lieutenant Webb asked quietly. I don't know, Chen admitted, but we're about to find out. On the screen, the Empress began to speak. She wore formal robes of state, and her expression was grave but calm. People of the Zephyrin Empire, and all those watching across the galaxy, she said. 3 days ago, I was presented with an impossible choice. I could choose war against the Terran Confederation, or I could choose peace. I could maintain the old ways, or I could accept change. She paused, letting the silence build. For 300 years, our empire has operated on a simple principle: strength through conquest. We expanded our borders by force. We ruled subject species through military might. We told ourselves this was necessary, that this was the only way to maintain order in a chaotic galaxy. The camera moved closer to her face. We were wrong. Gasps echoed through the imperial court visible behind her. Nobles looked shocked. Military officers stood rigid, uncertain how to react. The humans have shown us a truth we refuse to see, the Empress continued. That ruling through fear creates only resentment. That conquest builds empires that must eventually crumble. That true strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation. Chen felt her heart beating faster. This was it, the moment everything changed. Therefore, I am announcing the following decisions, the Empress said. First, I am ordering the immediate dismantling of the Sol quarantine. All weapons platforms, all blockade ships, all defensive systems that have imprisoned Earth for 3 centuries will be removed. The Terran Confederation is hereby recognized as a free and sovereign power, with all rights and privileges accorded to any independent civilization. Cheers erupted on the bridge of the Indomitable. Crew members hugged each other. Some were crying. Chen felt tears running down her own face. Earth was free. After 300 years, Earth was finally free, but the Empress wasn't finished. Second, I am formally apologizing to the people of Earth for the actions taken by my predecessors. The first contact war was unjust. The quarantine was cruel. The Terran Confederation deserves compensation, and we will work together to determine appropriate reparations. Third, and most importantly, I am proposing a fundamental restructuring of how we govern the galaxy. The age of empire is over. In its place, I propose the creation of a galactic council, where all species have an equal voice, where decisions are made through consensus, not force, where freedom is the right of all beings, not a privilege granted by the powerful. The camera pulled back to show the entire court. Some nobles were nodding in agreement, others looked furious, but the Empress had more to say. I know many of you oppose this change, she said, looking directly at the hardliners in her court. You believe the empire should remain as it was, that we should fight to maintain our dominance, but ask yourselves this: at what cost? How many more will die to preserve a system that no longer works? How many worlds will burn? How many generations will suffer? She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. I choose a different path. I choose peace. I choose progress. And I ask all species, all worlds, all peoples to join me in building something better than an empire. Join me in creating a galaxy where all can thrive, not just the strong. The broadcast ended. Chen stood in stunned silence. Around her, the crew was celebrating, but she felt overwhelmed. They had done it. Against all odds, against 3 centuries of hatred and fear, they had actually done it. Captain, the communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Patterson. He wants to speak with you immediately. Chen composed herself and accepted the transmission. Admiral Patterson's weathered face appeared on the screen. He was an old man, older even than Chen, one of the original volunteers who had left Earth nearly 3 centuries ago. Captain Chen, he said, I never thought I'd see this day. I never thought the Empire would actually agree. Neither did I, Admiral, Chen admitted.
What happens now? Now comes the hard part, making it real, building something that actually works. He smiled. The Empress wants to meet with our delegation to discuss the Galactic Council. She wants Earth to be a founding member. I'm
appointing you as our primary representative. Me? Admiral, I'm just a ship captain. I'm not a diplomat. You're the person who made this happen, Captain. You delivered the message that changed everything. You understood that we needed to offer more than just threats. You showed the galaxy that humans can be peacemakers as well as warriors. Chen thought about that. She had been trained as a soldier, had prepared for war her entire life. But maybe Patterson was right. Maybe humanity's real strength wasn't just in fighting, but in knowing when not to fight. I'll do my best, Admiral, she said. That's all any of us can do. Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched as the old order began to crumble, and a new one took its place. The Sol quarantine was dismantled, and the first non-human ships in 3 centuries entered Earth's star system. They brought gifts, offered trade agreements, and expressed wonder at the world that had been hidden for so long. But not everyone accepted the changes peacefully. On 17 worlds, Imperial hardliners attempted coups, trying to maintain the old ways through force. They seized military bases, declared martial law, and called for the Empress to be removed from power. The response came swiftly. Human ships, working alongside Imperial loyalists and forces from newly independent species, moved to stop the rebellions. Chen found herself commanding not just human vessels, but a mixed fleet of dozens of species all working together. On the planet Corvus Prime, where the rebellion was strongest, Chen's fleet arrived to find the hardliners entrenched in the planetary defense grid. They had taken civilian hostages and threatened to bombard the capital city if anyone tried to stop them. Chen opened a communication channel to the rebel commander, a general named Kreth, who had fought in multiple Imperial campaigns. General Kreth, she said, this doesn't have to end in bloodshed. Stand down, release the hostages. The Empress is offering amnesty to those who surrender peacefully. Amnesty? Kreth's voice was filled with contempt. I don't want amnesty from a coward who surrendered to primitives. The Empire was strong before you humans corrupted it with your talk of peace and cooperation. The Empire was dying, Chen corrected. It was collapsing under its own weight. The Empress saw that. She chose survival over pride. She chose weakness. And you... Kreth paused. I've read the reports from the First Contact War. I know what your kind are capable of. You don't want peace. You want conquest. You're playing a long game, making us weak so you can destroy us later. Chen felt sad rather than angry. This general was so locked into the old way of thinking that he couldn't imagine anything different. General, I'm going to tell you something. True, she said. 300 years ago, Earth had every reason to hate the Empire. You killed millions of us, you trapped us, you stole our future. If we wanted revenge, we could have had it. Our fleet could have bombarded your worlds the same way you planned to bombard ours, but we didn't. Do you know why? Enlighten me, human. Because revenge doesn't build anything. It only destroys. And we're tired of destruction. We spent 3 centuries in a cage, General. We know what it's like to be trapped, to be afraid, to wonder if we'd ever be free. We don't want anyone else to feel that way. Not your people, not any species. That's why we're offering peace. That's why we're building the council, not to conquer, but to free. There was a long silence. You're very convincing, Captain, Kreth said finally, but I don't believe you. Actions speak louder than words. If you truly want peace, prove it. Take your fleet and leave. Let us have our world. We'll stay out of your new order, and you stay out of ours. Chen considered that. It would be easy to just leave, to let the hardliners have their isolated planets. But that wasn't a real solution. I can't do that, General, she said. Because you're holding hostages. Civilians who don't want to be part of your rebellion, they deserve freedom too. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to release them. Then we'll talk about what comes next. And if I refuse? Then my fleet will disable your weapon systems, and we'll come get the hostages ourselves. I'd prefer not to do that, General. People might die, but I will if I have to. Chen cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Prepare boarding teams. If those hostages aren't released in 1 hour, we go in. 45 minutes later, Kreth released the hostages. He didn't surrender, but he let the civilians go. Chen kept her word and didn't immediately attack. Instead, she established a blockade around the planet and waited. 3 days later, Kreth's own officers arrested him. They were tired of the standoff, tired of being isolated from the galaxy. They wanted to be part of the new order, not stuck in the past. Similar stories played out across the Empire. Some rebellions ended peacefully. Others required force. But slowly, inevitably, the hardliners were defeated or convinced to stand down. The old empire was fading, and something new was being born. 5 years after that historic broadcast, Captain Chen walked through Unity Station, the newly completed headquarters of the Galactic Council. The station was enormous, built with contributions from 100 different species. Its halls were filled with beings from across the galaxy, all working together to maintain the peace. Chen had aged in those 5 years. The stress of constant negotiation, of building something unprecedented, had left its mark, but she felt satisfied. The council was working, not perfectly, but well enough. Disputes were resolved through discussion rather than war. Trade flourished. Species that had been enemies for generations were learning to cooperate. She found Commander Thelvas in one of the station's observation decks, looking out at the stars. The old Imperial officer had become an unlikely friend over the years. He had been one of the first to support the Empress's reforms and had worked tirelessly to help create the new order. Captain Chen, he greeted her. Or should I say Ambassador Chen now? Just Chen is fine, she said, joining him at the window. We're past the need for titles between friends. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching ships arrive and depart from the station. Human vessels mixed with Imperial ships, Kelran traders, and a dozen other species, all moving freely. I've been thinking about that day, Thelvas said. When we first found your ship, I was so scared. I thought Earth's return meant war, death, The end of everything we knew. You weren't wrong, Chen said. It did mean the end of everything. You knew. Just not the way you expected. Indeed. He smiled. Tell me something honestly. Did you plan this from the beginning? Was it always about liberating the galaxy? Or did you just want Earth to be free? Chen thought carefully about her. Answer. When we left Earth 300 years ago, all we wanted was to survive. To make sure humanity had a future somewhere even if Earth fell. But then we had time to think, time to plan. And we realized that just surviving wasn't enough. We wanted to thrive. We wanted to build something better. She turned to face him. So yes, we planned to break the quarantine. We planned to force the Empire to recognize our sovereignty, but the rest, the Council, the liberation of other species, that evolved. We saw an opportunity to make real change, and we took it. And now? Thelvis asked. What does humanity want now? Now we want what everyone wants, to explore, to learn, to build, to create a future where our children don't have to worry about being caged or conquered. She gestured at the window. Look at that. 100 different species, all working together. 5 years ago, that was impossible. Now it's normal. That's what we wanted to build. A young human officer approached them. Ambassador Chen, the Council is ready for you. The vote on the expansion initiative is about to begin. Chen nodded. I'll be right there. The officer left and Chen prepared to go. But Thelva stopped her with a question. Do you think it will last, this new order? Or will we fall back into old patterns? Chen smiled. I don't know. But I know this. Humanity spent 300 years in a cage and we never stopped trying to break free. We never accepted our prison as permanent. And now that we're free, now that we've helped free others, we're not going to let anyone build new cages, not ever again. She started to leave, then paused. You know what the real difference is between empires and councils? Empires are built on fear, on the idea that some beings are meant to rule and others are meant to submit. Councils are built on hope, on the belief that everyone has something to contribute, that cooperation is stronger than domination. Humanity taught us that, Thelva said. No, Chen corrected. We just reminded you. Every species knows it deep down. You just need someone to show you it's possible. She left him at the window and made her way to the council chambers. As she walked through the corridors, she saw the future being built around her. Children of different species playing together, scientists from across the galaxy collaborating on projects, traders making deals, diplomats resolving disputes with words instead of weapons. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems, still conflicts, still challenges. But they were facing those challenges together now. That night, Chen returned to her quarters on the station and recorded a message. It would be transmitted to Earth, to be added to the historical archives. This is Captain Sarah Chen, final log entry, she said. 300 years ago, Earth was attacked, besieged, and imprisoned. Our ancestors fought for our survival and they won. But they couldn't win our freedom. That took time. That took patience. That took 3 centuries of preparation. She paused, organizing her thoughts. To anyone listening to this in the future, remember this. Humanity's strength isn't just in our ability to fight. It's in our refusal to give up. It's in our capacity to endure. And most importantly, it's in our understanding that freedom isn't worth having if only some people have it. The Empire tried to cage us. They thought they could contain the threat we represented, but they misunderstood what we were. We weren't a threat to peace, we were a threat to tyranny. And when we broke free, we didn't just escape our own cage. We shattered the entire system of cages. She looked out her window at the stars. The galaxy is different now. Better. Not because humans conquered it, but because we showed everyone that a different way was possible, that cooperation works better than domination, that freedom is stronger than fear. So to future generations, I say this: never accept a cage. Never accept that some beings are meant to rule while others submit. Never stop fighting for a better world. And never forget that the most powerful weapon humanity has isn't our ships or our guns. It's our stubborn, relentless refusal to accept injustice." She ended the recording and sent it on its way to Earth. Then she went to bed, exhausted, but content. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new crises to manage. But she wasn't worried. Humanity had survived 300 years of imprisonment. They could handle anything the universe threw at them now. Outside her window, ships continued to arrive and depart from Unity Station. Hundreds of different species, all working together, all building something that had never existed before. An empire had fallen, a prison had been broken, and from the ashes, something better had risen. The age of freedom had begun, and humanity, those stubborn, relentless survivors, would make sure it lasted. The morning sky over Washington, D.C. was clear and blue when they came. Commander Jack Reynolds stood on the balcony of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, sipping his coffee and enjoying the rare moment of peace. At 45, with gray starting to show in his dark hair, Jack had served in the last of Earth's conflicts before the Great Peace of 2071. 16 years of worldwide cooperation had led to amazing advances in technology and quality of life. "Commander, you need to see this." Lieutenant Tom Miller burst onto the balcony, his face pale. Jack followed him inside to the control room where dozens of screens showed the same thing, massive objects appearing in Earth's orbit. They weren't meteors or space debris. They were ships. "How many?" Jack asked, setting down his coffee mug. 57 so far, sir. And more are appearing." Jack stared at the screens. Humanity had been sending signals into space for over a century, hoping for contact. Now it had come without warning. "Get me the president." Dr. Emma Wilson was in her lab at MIT when the emergency alerts began blaring from every device. At 38, she was the leading expert in xenobiology, a field that had been mostly theoretical until today. "All personnel report to emergency stations. This is not a drill," the announcement repeated. Emma rushed to the window. In the distance, a strange light appeared in the sky above Boston. Her phone rang. "Dr. Wilson," she answered. "Doctor, this is Commander Reynolds of the EDF. We need you in Washington immediately. A military transport is already on its way to you." "What's happening?" "First contact, Doctor, and it doesn't look friendly." The President of the United Earth Alliance stood before the emergency session of the Global Council, her face grim. "Less than 1 hour ago, unknown vessels appeared in orbit. They have not responded to any attempts at communication. Our satellites have been disabled, and we've lost contact with our lunar base." The room erupted in worried murmurs. "The Earth Defense Force is on high alert," she continued. "But I must be honest, we are facing technology far beyond our own." A young aide rushed in and whispered something to the president. Her face went white. "They're broadcasting a message." The main screen lit up, showing a humanoid figure with gray-blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its voice was translated by the computer into a flat, mechanical tone. "People of Earth, we are the Valari Dominion. Your planet is now under our control. Resistance will result in destruction. You have 1 hour to surrender your governing bodies to Valari authority." The screen went dark. Jack paced the EDF command center. "What are our options?" General Bill Harris, head of the Space Division, shook his head. "Limited, sir. Our orbital platforms are outgunned. Ground-based defenses might take out a few ships, but not 57. "And if we surrender?" Jack asked. "Based on similar situations in history," said Dr. Wilson, who had arrived minutes earlier. "Complete subjugation at best, extinction at worst." Jack nodded. "Then we fight." "Sir," called out a sensor operator. "Energy spikes from the alien vessels." The room fell silent as everyone watched the monitors. Bright beams shot from the ships toward Earth's surface. "Impact points?" Jack demanded. "Major cities worldwide, sir. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow." The building shook as a distant boom echoed across Washington. The aliens had not waited for Earth's answer. The first day of the invasion was the worst in human history. The Valari strikes hit population centers with deadly accuracy. Billions died in the first hours. The survivors watched in horror as strange ships descended through the smoke-filled skies, landing troops and machines. 3 days after the initial attack, Jack and Emma found themselves in an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, one of the few EDF facilities still operating. "This is what we know," Jack told the assembled military and civilian leaders. "The Volari are an expansionist species. This isn't their first invasion." Emma stepped forward. "From the data we've gathered, they've conquered at least 12 other worlds. Their tactics are always the same. Hit hard, destroy resistance, then establish control." "What do they want?" asked a senator who had escaped the destruction of Washington. "Resources," Emma replied, "particularly water and certain rare minerals. And labor. They use conquered species as workers." Jack pointed to a map showing Volari positions. "They control most major cities now, but their numbers aren't unlimited. They rely on fear more than anything. If we can organize resistance..." The bunker's communication system crackled to life. A Volari face appeared on screen. "I am High Commander Krell of the Volari Dominion. Your resistance is noted and will be punished. Tomorrow we will destroy one city for every day you refuse to surrender. I speak directly to your military leader, Jack Reynolds. We know you survive. Surrender yourself, and fewer humans will die." The transmission ended. "They know who you are," Emma said quietly. Jack's jaw tightened. "Good. Then they know who to fear." 1 week after the initial attack, Jack led a small team into the ruins of Denver. The city was under Volari control, with alien patrols moving through the streets and strange flying machines monitoring from above. "Stay low," Jack whispered to his team of 6 soldiers and Emma. "We need to reach the lab." Denver University's advanced physics lab held equipment Emma believed could be vital for understanding Volari technology. They moved through the shadows of destroyed buildings, avoiding Volari patrols. Twice they had to hide as flying drones passed overhead. "Their pattern recognition software isn't designed for Earth," Emma whispered as they crouched behind a collapsed wall. "They're looking for movement, but they don't understand how humans hide." At the university, most buildings were damaged, but the science complex remained partially intact. The team slipped inside, using night vision to navigate the dark hallways. "Here," Emma said, stopping at a reinforced door. "The quantum lab." Inside, they found what they were looking for: advanced scanning equipment that might help understand Volari technology. As they gathered the equipment, a sound from outside froze them in place. "Patrol," whispered Tom, who was watching the end window. Through the broken glass, they saw 3 Volari soldiers walking toward the building. Each stood 7 feet tall, wearing armor that seemed to shift colors in the moonlight. They carried weapons unlike anything humans had seen before, living metal that moved and adjusted in their 4-fingered hands. "If they find us, they'll call for backup," Jack said quietly. "We need to take them out silently." The team moved into position. Jack gave the signal, and they struck with practiced precision. The fight was brief but intense. The Volari were stronger than humans, but Jack's team had the element of surprise. Within minutes, the aliens lay dead, and the humans had 3 Volari weapons. "Let's move," Jack ordered. "More will come soon." As they escaped into the night, carrying the lab equipment and alien weapons, Jack looked back at the ruined city. Anger burned inside him, but also determination. "They hit us first," he said quietly. "They won't get the chance to hit anyone else." Emma nodded beside him. "We'll make sure of it." The small group of humans disappeared into the shadows, carrying the seeds of what would become humanity's greatest fight, and ultimately its greatest victory. 6 months after the Volari attack, Earth was a changed planet. Cities lay in ruins, billions were dead, and the alien invaders controlled most of the world's resources. But humans were far from defeated. In the mountains of what was once called Colorado, the Resistance had built its main base. Hidden deep underground, protected by natural caves and human ingenuity, it served as the headquarters for the fight against the Volari. Jack Reynolds stood before a map table, studying the positions of known Volari outposts. His face was thinner, now with a scar running along his jaw from a close encounter with a Valari patrol. "Report," he said as Emma Wilson entered the room. Emma looked tired, but excited. Her lab coat was stained and torn in places, a sign of the limited resources they worked with. "We've made a breakthrough," she said. "The Valari weapons we captured, we finally understand how they work." Jack looked up with interest. "Can we make our own?" "Not yet, but we can disable theirs." Emma placed a small device on the table. "The Valari weapons are linked to their biology. That's why we couldn't use them, but it also gives us an advantage." "How so?" "They respond to specific frequencies, like a remote control. With this device, we can shut them down within a 100-meter radius." For the first time in months, Jack smiled. "That changes everything. Good work, Doctor." Tom Miller, now Jack's second in command, entered the room. "Sir, our scouts have returned from Denver. The Valari are building something big, some kind of tower." "Communication center, most likely," Jack said. "They're still trying to contact their home fleet for reinforcements. Then we need to destroy it," Tom said. Jack nodded. "And now we have the means to do it." The human resistance had grown stronger each month. Small groups operated in every region, sharing information through an underground network. The Valari, expecting humans to give up, were unprepared for their determination. High Commander Krell paced in his command center, built in the ruins of the former human capital. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of stress in Valari. Another supply depot attacked. He growled to his officers. "That's the 5th this month. How are these primitives doing this?" "They hide among the ruins," said his second in command. "They strike quickly and disappear. They should have surrendered by now." Krell slammed his 4-fingered hand on the control panel. "No species has resisted us this long. Double the patrols. Kill any human found outside the work camps." In the shadows outside the window, a small drone hovered silently, broadcasting every word back to the resistance. 2 weeks later, Jack led a team of 20 fighters toward Denver. They moved at night, using the cover of a storm to mask their approach. Each carried Emma's new device along with conventional weapons. "Remember, the devices have a limited range," Jack told them. "Get close before activating them." The Denver outpost was heavily guarded. 20 Valari soldiers patrolled the perimeter of the massive tower that now dominated the city center. Strange energy pulsed from its top, reaching into the sky. "They're nearly ready to call for reinforcements," Emma whispered. She had insisted on coming despite Jack's objections. "If that signal reaches their homeworld, we'll face 10 times as many Valari." "Then we make sure it doesn't," Jack replied. He gave hand signals to his team and they split into 4 groups, each approaching the tower from a different direction. Jack, Emma, and 3 others took the most dangerous route, directly through the front checkpoint. They wore cloaks made from Valari armor pieces, designed to confuse the aliens' heat sensors. As they approached the checkpoint, Emma activated her device. The effect was immediate. The 2 Valari guards looked down in confusion as their weapons went dead in their hands. Before they could raise an alarm, Jack's team struck. The fight was silent and quick. "Inside now," Jack ordered. They entered the tower, moving quickly through its strange corridors. The architecture was alien, with curves and angles that made no sense to human eyes. They passed several Valari who looked at them with surprise before being taken down. "The main control room should be at the top," Emma said, consulting a small scanner she had built from salvaged Valari technology. As they climbed, alarms began to sound. "They know we're here," Jack said. "Move faster." At the top level, they found a large circular room filled with Valari technology. Through the windows, they could see the whole ruined city spread out below them. 5 Valari technicians worked at control panels. Jack nodded to his team. They activated their devices together, and all Valari weapons in the room went dead. The aliens turned in shock as the humans burst in. The fight was brief, but violent. When it ended, Jack's team controlled the room, though 2 of their members were badly wounded. "How much time do we need?" Jack asked Emma, who was already working at the main control panel. 10 minutes to download their data, 5 more to set the charges, she replied, her fingers moving quickly over the alien controls. Their entire database is here. Maps of all their outposts on Earth, technical specifications of their weapons, everything. Jack nodded and turned to his radio. All teams report. The replies came in. All teams had secured their areas. The tower was under human control. As Emma worked, Jack looked out at the ruined city. In the distance, he could see movement. More Volari forces responding to the alarm. "We have company coming," he said. "Hurry." Emma didn't look up from her work. "Almost done with the download. Then I'll plant the charges." Jack watched as she copied the Volari database into a small device she had built. When it was complete, she moved quickly around the room, placing explosive charges at key points. "There's something else here," she said suddenly, her eyes wide as she looked at the control panel. "Their communications log. They've been sending reports back to their home world. Can you read it?" "Yes, and Jack, this isn't their first invasion. They've conquered 12 other worlds before Earth." Jack's face darkened. "Then those worlds need freedom too." Emma nodded. "The charges are set. We have 5 minutes." Jack called to his team. "Time to go. Bring the wounded." They moved quickly, down through the tower, fighting their way past Volari reinforcements that had entered the building. Outside, chaos had erupted as the other human teams engaged the Volari forces. "Everyone out, now," Jack shouted into his radio. The human fighters broke away from the battle, retreating through pre-planned escape routes. The Volari, confused by their sudden withdrawal, hesitated to follow. From a hillside a mile away, Jack, Emma, and the surviving members of their team watched as the tower exploded. The blast lit up the night sky and the tower collapsed in on itself. "That should set them back months," Jack said with grim satisfaction. Emma held up the small device containing the stolen data, "And this will help us hit them even harder next time." As they made their way back to their hidden base, Jack felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. The Volari were strong, but humanity was learning, adapting, and fighting back. "They hit us first," Jack said quietly, "but we're just getting started." 1 year had passed since the Volari attacked Earth. In that time, humanity had gone from helpless victims to determined fighters. The Resistance now operated on every continent, sharing information through a hidden network of old radio systems the Volari couldn't track. In the main Resistance base, Jack Reynolds stood before the largest gathering of Resistance leaders ever assembled. 30 men and women from around the world had risked everything to travel here. "Thanks to Dr. Wilson and her team," Jack began, "we now understand Volari technology better than they ever expected we could." Emma stepped forward. The past year had changed her too. The scientist was now also a fighter with the same determined look in her eyes as the soldiers around her. "The data we captured from the Denver Tower gave us everything," she said. "Their weapons, their ships, their communications, we've been studying it all. And we've made 2 major breakthroughs." She pressed a button, and a 3D map appeared, showing Earth and the Volari ships still in orbit. "First, we've created a virus that can infect their control systems. Once uploaded to their main network, it will disable their orbital weapons." Murmurs of approval spread through the room. "Second," Emma continued, "we've discovered their greatest weakness." Everyone leaned forward. "The Volari have an extremely sensitive hearing range. Certain sound frequencies cause them intense pain, even unconsciousness. We've developed sonic weapons that can incapacitate them without harming humans." Jack stepped forward again. "Which brings us to our plan. It's time to take back our planet." High Commander Krell was furious. For months, the human resistance had been growing bolder. Supply lines were disrupted, outposts were attacked, and now 3 Volari ships had been sabotaged while on the ground. "These humans are not like the others we've conquered," he growled to his officers. "We should have wiped them out completely from orbit." "The resources would have been damaged," his second-in-command reminded him. "Resources can be found elsewhere." Krell slammed his fist down. "Send word to the mothership. I want all human resistance cells bombed from orbit. No more prisoners, no more work camps, just elimination." That night, a small team of humans approached the main Volari base in what was once Washington, D.C. Jack and Emma led 10 of their best fighters, each carrying the new sonic weapons and wearing uniforms made from modified Volari armor. "Remember, We need to reach the central computer, Jack reminded them. Everything depends on uploading the virus. Emma checked the small device in her hand one last time. Months of work had gone into creating the virus that would disable the Volari orbital platforms. They reached the outer perimeter of the base. 2 Volari guards stood at the entrance, their weapons ready. Now, Jack whispered. 2 of his team activated small devices. The sounds they emitted were barely noticeable to human ears, but the effect on the Volari was immediate. The guards clutched their heads in pain, dropping to their knees. Move in, Jack ordered. The team rushed forward, stunning the guards with conventional weapons. They dragged the unconscious Volari into the shadows and took their positions. Tom, you and your team create a distraction on the east side in 5 minutes, Jack said into his radio. We'll use the confusion to reach the central computer. Understood, came Tom's reply. Jack, Emma, and 3 others entered the base, moving quickly. Through the alien corridors, they encountered few Volari. Most were at their stations or resting in their quarters. The main control room should be 2 levels up, Emma whispered, checking a small scanner. As they climbed the stairs, a loud explosion rocked the building. Tom's distraction had begun. Alarms blared throughout the base. The sounds of running feet and shouted Volari commands filled the air. Perfect, Jack said. Most of their forces will head to the explosion. They reached the upper level and found the entrance to the control room. 4 Volari stood guard, looking alert and ready. Sonic, weapons, Jack ordered. The team activated their devices. The guards immediately grabbed at their heads, their 4 eyes squeezing shut in pain. Within seconds, they collapsed. Inside, quickly, Jack said. The control room was larger than they expected. A dozen Volari technicians worked at various stations, with a massive central computer dominating the room. When the humans burst in, the aliens reached for weapons. Now! Jack shouted. Emma turned up her sonic device to maximum. The effect was devastating. Every Volari in the room fell to the floor, some unconscious, others writhing in pain. Cover the door, Jack ordered 2 of his team while Emma rushed to the central computer. She connected her device and began uploading the virus. This will take 2 minutes, she said, her fingers flying over the alien controls. Jack kept his weapon trained on the fallen Volari. Hurry. We won't have much time before reinforcements arrive. As Emma worked, Jack's radio crackled. Sir, came Tom's voice, we've got trouble. Krell himself is here, with at least 30 soldiers. Hold them off as long as you can, Jack replied. We're almost done. The sounds of battle echoed through the base. Tom's team was fighting hard, but they were outnumbered. Upload complete, Emma announced. The virus is in their system. On the main screen above them, they could see the status of the Volari orbital platforms. One by one, the lights representing their weapon systems began to turn from green to red. It's working, Emma said, a smile spreading across her face. Their orbital weapons are shutting down. Jack nodded. Now for Phase 2, signal all resistance, cells worldwide. The counterattack begins now. Emma activated a hidden transmitter in her pack, sending a coded message to resistance groups around the world. At that moment, in every major city and Volari outpost, human fighters launched coordinated attacks. Time to go, Jack said. We need to reach the shuttle bay. They left the control room, rushing through corridors now filled with confused and panicking Volari. Some tried to stop them, only to be incapacitated by the sonic weapons. This way, Emma said, consulting her scanner. The shuttle bay is 1 level down. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with High Commander Krell and 10 of his soldiers. The Volari leader's 4 eyes widened in recognition. Reynolds, he hissed. Krell, Jack replied calmly, raising his sonic device. But Krell was prepared. He and his soldiers wore what looked like modified helmets covering their hearing organs. Did you think we wouldn't adapt? Krell said, raising his weapon. You humans always underestimate us. No, Jack said with a smile. You've always underestimated us. He fired his weapon not at Krell but at the ceiling above him. The blast brought down a section of the roof separating Krell from half his soldiers. Run! Jack shouted to his team. They sprinted down a side corridor, hearing Krell's angry shouts. behind them. Two of Krell's soldiers managed to follow, firing their weapons. One blast hit a member of Jack's team, who fell with a cry of pain. "Leave no one behind," Jack ordered, turning to fire back as another team member helped the wounded fighter. They reached the shuttle bay to find it in chaos. Valari were rushing to their ships, some to join the fight, others trying to escape. The now vulnerable base. "There," Emma pointed to a small Valari shuttle. "That one's perfect." They fought their way across the bay, using both sonic weapons and captured Valari guns. When they reached the shuttle, Emma quickly bypassed the security system, opening the door. "Everyone inside," Jack ordered. As his team boarded, Jack looked back across the bay. Krell had arrived, his face twisted with fury as he spotted Jack. Jack gave the Valari commander a mocking salute before jumping into the shuttle. Emma was already at the controls, activating the engines. "Can you fly this thing?" Jack asked. "I've spent a year studying their technology," Emma replied. "Watch me." The shuttle lifted off, its weapons firing at the bay doors to force them open. As they shot out into the night sky, Jack looked down at the Valari base. Fires had broken out in several places, and the sounds of battle echoed across the ruins of Washington. "It's happening everywhere," Emma said, checking the shuttle's communication system. "All resistance cells are attacking. We've taken back São Paulo and Berlin already." Jack nodded, allowing himself a moment of hope. "Their orbital weapons are disabled. Their communication with their homeworld is cut off. For the first time, we're fighting on equal terms." "No," Emma said, looking at him with fire in her eyes. "We're going to do better than that. We have their shuttle technology now. Jack, we can take the fight to them." Jack's eyes widened as he understood what she was suggesting. "Their homeworld?" Emma nodded. "They hit Earth first. Let's make sure they never fight a war again." 3 months after the Great Counterattack, humanity had reclaimed most of Earth. The remaining Valari forces were scattered and cut off from their command structure. Without their orbital weapons, they were forced to fight on the ground, a day battle they were losing. At the former Valari base in Washington, D.C., now the headquarters of the Earth Defense Force, Jack Reynolds studied the captured alien star charts displayed on a large screen. "Veltharaya," he said, pointing to a bright star system. "The Valari homeworld." Around the table stood the leaders of the resistance, now called the United Earth Forces. Emma Wilson stood at Jack's right hand, while Tom Miller and others from around the world completed the circle. "Are you sure about this?" asked General Maria Lopez, commander of the South American forces. "Attacking their homeworld is a massive escalation." Jack nodded. "They came to our world, they killed billions. If we don't stop them at their source, they'll be back with an even larger force." "The technology is ready," Emma added. "From the Valari shuttles and ships we've captured, we've built 5 warships capable of reaching Velthara." "5 ships against an entire world?" asked Tom, doubt in his voice. Emma smiled. "We don't need a huge fleet. We have something better." She held up a small device. "An improved version of our sonic weapon. This one can affect the entire Valari species at once, broadcast through their own communication network. It won't kill them," Jack explained, "but it will incapacitate them long enough for us to take control." "And the 12 other worlds they conquered?" asked a resistance leader from Asia. "We free them too," Jack said simply. "We end the Valari threat forever, not through genocide but through control and rehabilitation." The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. Finally, General Lopez spoke. "When do we leave?" "The 5 Earth warships, built from captured Valari technology, prepared for launch. Each ship carried a crew of 20 humans, all veterans of the resistance. The largest ship, named Terra, would be commanded by Jack himself, with Emma on board to control the sonic weapon." The launch site was in the Arizona desert, hidden from any remaining Valari scouts. Crowds of people had gathered to watch, cheering as the ships rose into the air one by one. Inside the Terra, Jack strapped himself into the command chair. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, still getting used to the alien technology. "All systems operational," reported Tom, who served as Jack's second in command. The other ships report ready. Dr. Wilson, status of the weapon? Jack asked. Emma looked up from her console. Fully charged and tested. It will work, Jack. Jack nodded and opened a channel to all ships. This is Commander Reynolds. Today we take the fight to the enemy that thought they could conquer Earth. We go not for revenge but for justice. Not just for humanity, but for all species the Valari have oppressed. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. They hit Earth. First, we will make sure they never fight a war again. A cheer went up across all 5 ships. Jack turned to his pilot. Take us up. The ships rose higher, breaking through the atmosphere into the blackness of space. The blue curve of Earth shrank below them. FTL drives ready, reported the engineer. Jack took a deep breath. Engage. The stars blurred as the ships accelerated to faster than light speed, using the Valari technology that Emma and her team had mastered. They were the first humans to leave the solar system, traveling farther than any person had gone before. The journey to Velthara would take 2 weeks. During that time, the crews trained and prepared for every possible scenario. Emma worked constantly, fine-tuning the sonic weapon to ensure it would work through the Valari communication network. We'll only get one chance, she told Jack during a quiet moment on the bridge. Once they know what we're doing, they'll shut down their network. Then we make it count, Jack replied. 2 weeks later, the small human fleet dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Velthara system. Immediately, their sensors detected dozens of Valari ships patrolling the area. They haven't spotted us yet, Tom reported. Our modified shields are working. They're hiding our energy signature. On the main screen, they could see Velthara itself, a blue-green world larger than Earth with 3 small moons. Their central command is located here, Emma said, highlighting a spot on the planet's largest continent. That's where we need to get to upload the sonic weapon to their network. Jack studied the tactical display. Their orbital defenses are stronger than Earth's were. We can't fight our way through. We don't have to, Emma replied. I've been studying their identification codes. We can make our ships appear to be returning Valari vessels. Will that work? Tom asked. The Valari are arrogant, Emma said. They never expected anyone to capture their ships and use them to reach their homeworld. Their security is designed to keep other species out, not their own kind. Jack nodded. Do it. Emma entered a series of commands, transmitting false identification codes to their ships. On the tactical display, the Valari patrol vessels continued their routes, not reacting to the human ships. It's working, Tom said quietly. They think we're Valari. Take us in, Jack ordered. Maintain formation and follow the usual Valari approach vectors. The 5 ships moved toward Velthara, following the standard flight paths used by Valari vessels. As they approached the planet, they received automated landing instructions from the surface. They're directing us to the main military spaceport, Emma reported. Right where we want to go. Jack opened a channel to the other ships. This is it. Once we land, we'll have minutes at most before they realize we're not Valari. Blue team, secure the landing area. Red team, with me and Dr. Wilson to the central command. Green team, hold the ships and prepare for emergency departure. The Terra led the way, descending through Velthara's atmosphere. Through the viewports they could see the alien landscape below, strange purple-leaved forests and gleaming cities. It's beautiful, someone whispered. So was Earth, Jack replied grimly. The ships landed at the massive spaceport. Outside Valari, ground crews approached, expecting to greet their own kind. Now, Jack ordered. The ship's doors opened, and human soldiers rushed out, armed with sonic weapons. The Valari ground crews collapsed immediately, their 4 eyes wide, with shock and pain. Move fast, Jack commanded. We have 10 minutes at most before they sound a general alarm. Jack led his team toward the central command building, a tall structure in the center of the spaceport. Emma ran beside him, carrying the device that would connect to the Valari network. They met resistance as they entered the building. Valari security forces armed and ready, but the sonic weapons gave the humans an overwhelming advantage. The Valari fell, clutching their heads in agony. "This way," Emma said, following the map they had extracted from captured Valari computers. They fought their way to the central communication room. Valari technicians tried to stop them, but to no avail. Within minutes, the room was secure. "How long?" Jack asked as Emma connected her device to the main console. 3 minutes to upload, 2 more for it to spread through their entire network, she replied, her fingers moving rapidly over the alien controls. Jack turned to his radio. "All teams report." The responses came back. All positions secure, but Valari reinforcements were on the way. "Hurry," Jack told Emma. "Upload complete," she announced. Now we wait for it to propagate. On the large screens around the room they could see views of Velthera cities. Suddenly, Valari everywhere began to drop to the ground, incapacitated by the sonic frequencies now broadcasting through every speaker and communication device on the planet. "It's working," Emma said with a smile of satisfaction. Jack opened a channel that would broadcast to all Valari communication devices. His voice would be heard by every Valari on the planet who was still conscious. "People of Velthera, I am Commander Jack Reynolds of Earth. Your forces attacked our world without provocation, killing billions of our people. Today, we have brought the war to your doorstep." He paused, looking at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "But we are not like you. We do not seek to conquer or destroy. We demand the immediate surrender of all Valari forces, the release of all conquered species, and the dismantling of your war fleet. Comply, and your people will live. Resist, and we will be forced to take more drastic measures." As Jack spoke, Tom rushed into the room. "Sir, we've got the entire planet under control. The sonic weapon worked better than we expected. Nearly every Valari is incapacitated." Jack nodded. "And the other ships in the system?" "Adrift. Their crews are affected, too. It's a complete victory." For the first time in nearly 2 years, Jack felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. He looked at Emma, whose eyes shone with tears of relief and triumph. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." Jack turned back to the broadcast. "To the conquered peoples of the 12 worlds under Valari control, help is coming. Your long nightmare is over." He switched off the broadcast and turned to his team. "Secure the planet. Prepare for the arrival of the Earth fleet." "Earth fleet?" Tom asked, confused. "What Earth fleet?" Jack smiled. "The one we're going to build using Valari shipyards. It's time to free those other worlds." As they walked back to their ships, Jack looked up at the alien sky. The war wasn't over. There were still 12 worlds to free and a Valari society to reform. But the biggest step had been taken. They had hit Earth first. Humans had made sure they would never fight a war again. 1 year after the capture of Velthara, a new era had begun. The massive Valari shipyards, once used to build weapons of conquest, now produced vessels of peace and exploration. Under human guidance, the Valari war machine had been transformed. Jack Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the Unity, the largest ship ever built in the Valari shipyards. At 51, his hair was now more gray than black, but his eyes still held the same determination they had when the invasion began, 3 years ago. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Emma Wilson joined him at the viewport. She had changed too, more confident now, with the bearing of someone who had helped reshape the destiny of not just one world, but many. "Hard to believe what we've accomplished," Jack agreed, looking out at the fleet gathered around them. 50 ships crewed by humans and representatives from all 12 formerly conquered species. "The Liberation Fleet is ready," Tom Miller reported, entering the observation deck. "Final checks complete. We launch in 2 hours." Jack nodded. The last world. After this, all species conquered by the Valari will be free. Over the past year, the joint human-alien fleet had traveled to each of the 12 worlds the Valari had conquered, freeing them from Valari control. Some had been under alien rule for decades, their people forced to work in mines or factories. But there was one world left, Rantara, the most distant of the Valari conquests. How are our Valari crew members? Jack asked. Adapting well, Emma replied. The rehabilitation program is working better than expected. Those who have accepted that their conquering days are over are proving to be valuable allies. After capturing Velthara, humans had established a program to rehabilitate the Valari society. Those who rejected violence were allowed to join the new fleet as support staff, under careful supervision. It was a controversial decision, but Jack had insisted. We didn't come here for revenge, he had said. We came to end war. Now, as they prepared for their final liberation mission, Jack felt a sense of completion. The emergency communication system chimed, interrupting his thoughts. Commander Reynolds, came a voice. You're needed in the diplomatic hall. The representatives have arrived. The diplomatic hall of the Unity was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Representatives of all 12 liberated worlds had gathered, along with human leaders and even reformed Valari. It was the first meeting of what would become the Galactic Peace Council. Jack entered the hall with Emma and Tom beside him. The diverse assembly fell silent. Commander Reynolds, greeted Nari, a tall blue-skinned being from Lorath, the first world they had liberated. We are ready to begin. Jack took his place at the circular table. There were no head positions, no places of honor. All representatives sat as equals. 3 years ago, Jack began, the Valari attacked Earth without warning. They killed billions of my people thinking we would surrender quickly, as others had before us. He looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each representative. They were wrong. Humanity fought back. Not just for ourselves, but eventually for all peoples oppressed by the Valari. Today, as we prepare to liberate the final world under their control, we also lay the foundation for a new order, one where no species will ever again suffer as we have. Nari spoke next. The people of Lorath were conquered 20 years ago. We had forgotten what freedom felt like until humans came. We owe you a debt we can never repay. No debts, Jack replied firmly. Only a shared commitment to ensure this never happens again. One by one, representatives from each world spoke, sharing stories of Valari conquest and the joy of liberation. Even a Valari representative, one who had opposed the conquests from the beginning, spoke of his hope for his people's redemption. The proposed Galactic Peace Council will have 3 main purposes, Emma explained, displaying the charter on large screens around the room. First, mutual defense. An attack on any member world will be considered an attack on all. Second, cultural and scientific exchange to benefit all species. Third, rehabilitation and monitoring of the Valari to ensure they never again become a threat. The discussion continued for hours, refining the details of the agreement. Finally, as the meeting concluded, Jack called for a vote. Those in favor of establishing the Galactic Peace Council under these terms, please indicate. One by one, each representative signaled their approval. The charter was adopted unanimously. Then it is done, Jack said. After we liberate Rantara, the council will officially begin its work. As the representatives filed out, Emma stayed beside Jack. You look tired, she said quietly. It's been a long 3 years, he admitted. What will you do after Rantara? The war will be over. Jack looked out the viewport at the stars. I'm not sure. I've been a soldier most of my life. I don't know if I remember how to be anything else. You could stay on as Earth's representative to the Council, she suggested, or come with me. The Valari databases contain star charts for thousands of unexplored systems. We could lead the first true exploration missions. Before Jack could answer, Tom rushed back into the room. Sir, we've received a transmission from our advanced scouts at Rantara. You need to see this. The command center of the Unity buzzed with activity as Jack, Emma, and Tom entered. On the main screen was an image of Rantara, a small rocky world that should have been covered with Valari mining operations. Instead, there was nothing. No Valari bases, no ships in orbit. What am I looking at? Jack asked. Rantara is abandoned. the communications officer explained. The Valari pulled out 3 months ago, according to the locals. They just left. The sonic weapon, Emma said in realization. When we broadcast it through their network, it reached their forces on all worlds. They must have retreated. The locals are requesting to speak with you, the officer told Jack. Jack nodded and the screen changed to show a reptilian being with iridescent scales and 4 arms. I am Speaker Thraz of Rantara, the being said. Are you the humans we have heard about? The ones who defeated the Valari? We are, Jack confirmed. We came to liberate your world, but it seems you're already free. Thraz made a gesture that might have been a smile. When the Valari suddenly abandoned their bases, we thought it was a trick. Then we received transmissions from other worlds, speaking of humans who fought back against the conquerors and won. We have been waiting for you. We are not conquerors, Jack assured him. We come to invite Rantara to join a new alliance, the Galactic Peace Council. An alliance of equals, Emma added, for mutual protection and cooperation. Thraz bowed deeply. Rantara would be honored. Please come down to our world as friends. 2 days later, Jack stood with Emma on a hillside overlooking the capital city of Rantara. The Unity and its fleet hung in the sky above, no longer weapons of war but symbols of a new beginning. The Rantarans had welcomed them with celebration, already making preparations to join the council. Their representatives would travel back with the fleet to attend the first official council meeting. It's really over, Jack said quietly. The war, the liberation, all of it. Emma took his hand. Not over. Just changing into something new. In the valley below, humans mingled with Rantarans and representatives from other worlds. Children from different species played together, unconcerned with the differences between them. I think I'll take you up on that offer, Jack said. Exploration sounds good. I've had enough of war to last a lifetime. Several lifetimes, Emma agreed with a smile. As the twin suns of Rantara began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Jack thought about the journey that had brought them here. From the ashes of a devastated Earth to the birth of a new galactic community. They hit Earth first, he said softly. Emma squeezed his hand. And we made sure no one would fight a war again. Around them, the sounds of celebration rose into the alien sky, songs of freedom, of friendship, and of peace. A peace built not on conquest or fear, but on cooperation and respect. In the darkest moment of human history, humanity had found its greatest strength. And in doing so, they had changed the destiny of not just their own world, but of an entire galaxy.